Hey, everybody, and welcome to another edition of New York Sports Rehab. And today I'm going solo, as you can see. I'll be going on Friday with my boys, Matt and Andrew, as we'll discuss NFL free agency. But today I want to talk real quick about the one team in New York that's actually winning, the one team that if you turn on and watch a game can actually bring you a little joy and happiness in this crazy world of ours at this point. That's the New York Rangers. You can actually watch them and for a couple of hours use hockey as a means of an outlet to enjoy things with all the terrible things that are going on in the world right now. But, anyways, let's talk about the New York Rangers a little bit. In case you haven't noticed, they got a pretty good hockey team. As we stand today, I believe they're 36 and 15. They're tied with Pittsburgh for second place in the division. They're almost a lock to make the playoffs at this point, barring any type of collapse, and I don't think that will happen. They're a lock for the playoffs. It's just a matter of where they finish and who they play. Most likely, probably, if I was a betting man, I'd say you'll probably see Pittsburgh or Washington in the first round against the Rangers, and possibly if the Rangers make to the second round, they may have to play both Pittsburgh and Washington. But this team is really fun to watch, and it starts with the goaltending of Igor Shesterkin, probably the best goalie in hockey right now. As of today, I believe he's got a 1.93 goals against average right now. You watch him on a daily basis. This guy's just phenomenal. He's a great athlete. He's all over the place. The only thing that scares me about Shesterkin is overuse. I believe he's played 11 of the last 12 games. And I want him going to the playoffs, being at peak performance level and being healthy. And, he needs to play because without him, the Rangers wouldn't have the record they do because they are flawed in many ways. And one of the reasons why the Rangers, who do have a good team, but have a great team or a very good team right now because of Shesterkin. But over the last month of the season, I'd like to see him get a little bit more rest from time to time. As I said, he's played 11 of the last 12 games. I know he's a young guy. I know they had a 2-week break not too long ago. But when we get to that last month, I'd like to see the Rangers focus in on giving him rest from time to time. I think the Rangers' backup goaltender over the last month of the season isn't on the team right now. Alex Georgiev is the backup, and he's made it clear that he wants to start. He's not really happy right now on the Rangers. So, if we're going to forecast the future, I wouldn't be surprised if Georgiev is traded. The Rangers won't get much for him, but he'll be traded, and look for the Rangers to maybe pick up some type of a seasoned goaltender with a lot of experience, a veteran, to bring in as a reliable backup down the stretch. And hopefully, once that happens, Shesterkin will get a little bit more rest, and he'll head into the playoffs in peak condition and peak performance, because as Igor Shesterkin goes, so go the Rangers. The Rangers do have a chance to win a Stanley Cup, but they're going to need Shesterkin to play at his very best. This team is primed to win now. They do have flaws and they do need improvements, and we'll talk about that shortly. But if you look at their roster, they've got, again, arguably maybe the best defenseman in Adam Fox in the NHL. We talked about Shesterkin being possibly the best goalie. You got Chris Kreider, who at last look, I believe he's got 38 goals. He's either tied for the lead or one or two behind. He's having a career season. Mika Zibanejad is having a great year. The Rangers' top four, you can match up with anybody in the NHL, and you could argue and say maybe they are the best four. The Rangers have four players today that have over 50 points, headed by Panarin, who's got 61. Panarin hasn't scored a lot of goals, but he has really lit it up as far as assists go. So the combination of Mika Zibanejad, Artemi Panarin, Chris Kreider, Adam Fox, and even Ryan Strome, I believe, has got 39 points as a second-line center. You can't ask for much more there. The defense as a whole is pretty solid. Jacob Trouba, Keandre Miller has really come on. Fox, Lindgren, I think you're solid on defense. You're solid on the first two lines, but the depth of the team is where the problem is. And you could even argue maybe a second line forward, if you can swing a deal, would be a good thing as well. Kako has been out now, I think, since January 22nd. He was on that second line. Hopefully the Rangers do get him back and they do get some productivity out of him. He looked like he was starting to come on just as he got hurt. But without him there, the Rangers have done a lot as far as juggling third and fourth line forwards into the second line to cover for Kako, and it's been kind of inconsistent to say the least. So going forward with the Rangers, I think they're solid on defense. They'll stand pat on defense. Now you got Braden Schneider on the team as well, young player who was called up about a month ago from the minors. He's here to stay. He's only fortified the defense that much more. So we're solid at defense. Of course, we're solid at starting goalie. Our first two lines are solid, or most of the first two lines. But where the Rangers need to pick up a couple of guys to improve and really be strong and solid for a playoff run would be third and fourth line type of guys. I'm not going to get into, who's available and who they trade, because it's really so hard right now in hockey to determine who fits in as far as salary cap structure goes, or money wise, or, do you want a rental player? Do you want a guy that's going to be on a team for a while? Rangers got a lot of good depth in the minors, so they do have young players that they could possibly look to trade. So they have the assets to do so. I think they'll pull the trigger on a trade. Just not sure which way they'll go. Ideally, I wouldn't mind seeing the Rangers bring in two players, maybe one as a rental for the rest of this year, and another player who could be here for at least this year and next year. I know JT Miller, a former Ranger, has come up. Again, I wouldn't mind having him back, but at what cost? It's hard to break down or approve of a trade for him. It all depends what you have to give up. At the end of the day, he's still a veteran player. He's been around a while. You got him next year at this time. You could be looking to trade him again. So at what cost do we make that trade? So a lot will be determined just by the cost. As far as just off the cuff Ranger players that the Rangers could look to move, Niels Lundqvist would be probably the first guy that comes to mind. He's young. He's playing well in the minors now. Didn't do well earlier in the year when he was given a chance. He's somebody that you could possibly, package in a trade. He's a defenseman, and with the Rangers as deep as they are in defensemen and young defensemen, he becomes expendable. Vitaly Kravtsov, who was the Rangers' #1 pick a couple of years ago, who's been playing in Russia, I think there's a very good chance he gets traded. He didn't want to be here. He didn't want to accept his demotion. So if you could package a Lundqvist and a Kravtsov and maybe a second-round draft pick to pick up a good player that's going to be here for at least a couple of years, I'm all for that. So anyways, the Rangers are that one team that we can hold our hat on more or less and say, they're a good team, a playoff contending team, and a team that could possibly win a Stanley Cup this year. They're definitely ahead of schedule. If they don't win the Stanley Cup this year, I won't be too upset, because, to be honest with you, this team, I think, will still get better and still gel with these younger players and other younger players coming up. I'd love to see the Rangers win at least one round of the playoffs, possibly two. If they could get to the conference finals, to me, everything else would be absolute gravy at that point in this year of still kind of a rebuild. And if you're a team that's looking to rebuild effectively and quickly, look at the Rangers, more or less blueprint for it. In fact, they've been competitive the whole way. Even when they haven't made the playoffs, they've still been above 500. They've still had a pretty good team. A couple of years ago, they did make the playoffs in the expanded playoff version. I believe they lost in 3 games, but they got there with a very young team. Igor Shesterkin, I don't think, was even the starting goalie at that point. I think Lundqvist was still there. So you got to be happy with the Rangers. So if you're a sports fan, if you're a New York sports fan, and you're looking to watch a team that might bring you a little happiness and joy for just a couple of hours in these crazy, terrible times, watch the New York Rangers. If you're a New York sports fan who's casually watched the Rangers over the years and watches them only in the playoffs, start watching them now, because there's a lot of good hockey to go over the next month and a half. And there's a lot of things up for grabs as far as standings and placement. I doubt if the Rangers are going to catch Carolina. They're, I think, 6 points behind them. And as good as the Rangers are, Carolina is going to really, really be tough to beat. But start watching the Rangers now, because the Knicks are not going anywhere. We don't have baseball, and who knows if we're going to have baseball this year. And when we do, I think, kind of with everything that's going on in the world, as terrible it's been, with Ukraine and inflation and gas prices and everything else, you got millionaire baseball players haggling over money. Just my personal opinion. It's a kind of a turnoff right now with everything else going on, that these guys are haggling over money when they're making millions of dollars a year, and the lowest paid player is still getting, I think, $675,000. So, shame on baseball a little bit. Get your act together. Come to an agreement and get out there and play. But we have no baseball right now. We've got some exciting times in football with free agency and the draft coming up. And if you're a Jet fan, that's always our most exciting time of the year. Gives us hope for the future. But of course, that usually gets shot down in September. Maybe this year will be different. So again, really, if you're a New York sports fan and you're looking for some joy and you're looking for some happiness and someone to root for, it's the New York Rangers. So they're on MSG quite often. Start watching their games. This way, when they do make the playoffs, you'll have a familiarity of a lot of the different players on the team. But you got guys, like I said, Shesterkin, Panarin, Fox, Strome, Lindgren, Zibanejad, likable players. They play hard. I watched a lot of hockey when I was a kid, and this team kind of takes me back to my youth a little bit and is getting me more into watching hockey again. So that's my Rangers Roar broadcast. Hopefully the next time we talk about the Rangers, we'll be talking about them in the playoffs and maybe a series win, and we can evaluate, the team since the trade deadline. And I really do believe they're gonna improve. They're gonna bring a couple more guys in. They're well run. They're well managed, and I think Chris Drury, the general manager, will bring in a couple of players that will fortify the third line and maybe even the second line. Other than that, I think we're pretty much set. So that's Rangers Roar. Go Rangers. And let's see if we can take this team to the Stanley Cup. Everybody be well. Everybody be safe.